What's happening now hasn't happened in 500 years. It's the end of an old order. For example, 500 years ago, it was the divine right of kings, and it is the rebirth of a spiritual way of life that is centered within our own hearts, where we are the author, instead of allowing ourselves to be led by an outer authority, no matter what it is. Since 2008, when Pluto orbited into the constellation Capricornus, that's Latin for that horned mountain goat, the ground beneath us has been rumbling. Then when Saturn joined in with Pluto in Capricorn, December of 2017, it's felt like we've had an unrelenting series of massive volcanic eruptions. And we have, meaning the landscape of our world has changed forever, both inner and outer. And it cannot go back to what it was before. And I'm going to tell you why that's really good news. I'm Judith Royal, archetypal astrologer, and this is your astrological weather forecast for May the 20th through the 26th, 2019. The stress we feel is because some of us have continued trying to use the same old map and have gotten quite lost. Others of us took a deep breath and started the business of measuring the new topography and redrawing that map. Most of us, though, have ping-ponged back and forth between those two options. And all of us, this chaos has been disorienting on the ego-driven physical plane, but it has been a welcome sight for heart-centered compassion that we have now for all the suffering in the world. And this is the new order that we want to adjust to, that what happens to one of us happens to all of us. So what I'm talking about is the approaching meetup of Sheriff Saturn and powerful Pluto that will be exact at the end of 2019. It's creating momentous events that we'll have at the start of 2020. Guaranteed that your world and mine will not look the same by January 2020. So Saturn and Pluto joining forces like they are now, and it hasn't happened since 1519. That would be the beginning of the last cycle. It guarantees that the structure of our lives are changing really drastically. However, our 2019 version, thank goodness it has a different ingredient that wasn't there 500 years ago, and that is thunder and lightning. So, Uranus, the god of lightning, joined in this lineup with Saturn and Pluto. He joined in March 6th of this year. That's when he entered the other earth sign of Taurus. So that means all of you who have a sun, moon, or any personal planet in an earth sign, Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn, you are feeling this more than the rest of us do, because this rumbling, these volcanic eruptions, threaten the security and sense of safety that you long for and you've been used to having in the past, perhaps. But the paradox is this. It is true that we can see far away because we have the objectivity with us of that mountain goat, Capricorn, standing on top of K2. We can see forever. However, that earth is still rumbling and taking away the sense of security that the mountain goat ordinarily has there. That's because he can see what's coming from all directions. But thunder and lightning. So Uranus is adding a sense of urgency to his, well, he's always the guy that gives us those revolutionary wake-up calls saying the time to change is yesterday. But the trio together, that is Pluto, Saturn, and Uranus, together they have the effect of showing us that our resources are restricted. In other words, we can use them up. And so it isn't that it's available always to us to have everything that we want and everything we think we need. So the good part of that is that by having to do more with less, it narrows our focus and helps us concentrate our energies on measurable, achievable goals. And I know all of you Tauruses out there are just applauding the practicality of that. Now, this week, though, as actually most of May, Saturn and Pluto are retrograde. So it's an inner journey, meaning our inner resources. And we're finding that we cannot navigate well right now if we think there's unlimited possibilities that we can decide to choose this or that or the other, because they're not endless possibilities anymore. In fact, they are few. But it's really great because by achieving even one of those few, which, that means doing what you see you can do right in front of you, where one person makes all the difference in the world. And by achieving just that one thing in front of you, that's all that is needed. And is always true that even with my reading the language of the light of astrology, I can read that through the eyes of my ego perception, or I can look at it through the vision of my spiritual eye. And that's true of everything, not just the astrology, of course. So let me give you now 2 words to think about that are sort of being churned up within ourselves. And of course, when that happens, we have the outpicturing on the world stage of the various archetypal characters who are playing out this drama for us so that we can really see what is within us. So the ego's version, in particular, of what Pluto is up to is this: a ruthless determination to gain control of others in order to glean power for oneself. And that is power over another person gives us a false sense of control. So what this often shows up as is that place in us where we sort of rigidly adhere to what has always been true. You hear people saying, well, I do it like that because it's always been done that way. But that's now in the arena of obsession, right? And sort of this compulsive adherence to rules without the benefit of reason. So in other words, even our old instincts, our childhood conditioning, we need to still run that through our prefrontal cortex, right? And add some reason, also add some logic, because this is the earth plane, we need logic. So that key word of ruthless ends up in the ego's world of having people who are, well, they just don't have any compassion for others. or at least don't think that they should make decisions based on showing pity or compassion for other people. So that turns out to be a rather ruthless manipulator. And that kind of heartless hard-headedness is entrenching, that is to say, that always lands you in a Taurus rut, digging your heels in, being stubborn about changing. Now, the second word to think about as you're looking inside yourself is unrelenting. Now, this is often a word maybe associated with Sheriff Saturn, especially in Capricorn, meaning there is no yielding in terms of being flexible, right? It's an uncompromising position, unbendable, and meaning that you won't even compromise in the times where you know you would be better off if you did. You still might try to stay in what you think is more secure and safe, which is the old behavior, the old belief system. If we watch the archetypes on the world stage, they are a mirror reflecting back to us so we can see what is inside of us. So, for example, the really insane laws about abortion being battered about right now is a perfect example of the ruthless determination to try to gain control over women, in this case, who have always been a threat because people fear our power. And unrelenting, we can see that in many aspects where compromise would benefit everyone, but nobody will do it. So, for example, with Iran or with the border wall, no one is giving way to make a decision based on kindness and compassion. So you don't want to, of course, do any of that within yourself. And the answer there, of course, is to forgive yourself for whatever you're holding against you, for whatever decision you think has been made that was wrong. Because I promise you, in the big book of life, on the big spiritual plane, everything that's written in there is a number 2 pencil, and Spirit has a giant eraser. It's easy. And this Wednesday, the 22nd of May, is just the perfect day for doing this self-examination, for finding that ruthless dictator that's still inside your head, because he's going to really be very, very visible coming up so that you can see it and change it. And Wednesday is the day ruled by Mercury. It's a perfect day for communicating, also communicating with your own self. This week we started Monday with the moon in fiery Sagittarius. It's a very adventurous day, a lucky one, although, daydreams may interfere with your to-do list. And then on Tuesday, all of you with a Taurus sun have now had the completion of one orbit around the sun, and we now turn that baton over to Gemini. So the sun moves into Gemini on Tuesday the 21st, and with it is Mercury, the messenger. So Mercury also goes into Gemini at the same, practically within 2 hours of each other, which means the sun and Mercury are traveling together for the rest of this week. That is a solar-powered mind. And in Gemini, it means a plethora of ideas and you're going to try to multitask. Well, you could wear yourself out doing that. But if you are an air sign, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, this is really your cup of tea. It's a perfect time for writing, for creating in the intellectual realms. So write a book, read a book. And then Thursday, the moon is moving into Aquarius air, so that is going to be even more true. As we move into Memorial Day weekend, I would like to challenge all of us to pay attention to the hero, to the heroine within all of us. And I ask you to join with me in believing that hero, one hero, can change the entire world, and I can give you an example. So just this past week, I was reading Apple's Good News section, and I came across a story about a biologist. Her name is Lisa Carn, who went about the business of repopulating the dying coral reefs in the Caribbean Sea off the coast of Belize. She grew and then transplanted young corals. She'd raised them in her own nursery until they could live on their own and grow in those beautiful azure seas. So she went on to found a project that she calls Fragments of Hope. She gained international recognition, but more importantly, she proved to the Belize government that this kind of reforestation, as it were, is possible. So that government in 2018 took the amazing, unique step, and they voted in a moratorium on oil exploration. One woman with only one fragment of hope showed the whole world one way out of environmental devastation. And we can do that too. So thank you so much for listening. And if you would like to get in touch with me for your own personal reading, just email me at judith@judithroyal.com. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.